Hello and welcome to climbingarborist.com. My name is Dan Holliday, and in this video I really want to talk about rigging, which is one of my favourite things. One of my favourite parts of being a climbing arborist is getting complex with setting up different rigging systems, and having it all go to plan is just like the best feeling. Setting up something quite complex where it needs to be complex, setting up something nice and simple where it needs to be simple, and just having the job flow, having all the grounds people, everybody on the same wavelength, and having just like this nice flow throughout the day, everything going right. It's the best feeling to have rigging, have it set up well, have it go right, how I have everybody on the same wavelength and understand. So I want to talk a little bit about rigging, the risks involved in rigging, the benefits in rigging, and how, no matter if you're new to being an arborist or if you're experienced, how to try or how to mitigate issues happening as much as possible, by using a couple of simple techniques really. Play out every rigging scenario in your head before you make the cut. Rigging, it can be really fun, it can be really enjoyable to have a job go well and to everything flow smoothly, but rigging adds in a lot of risk. You obviously think you rig things out to reduce risk, to reduce damage of property, damage of people's gardens, sheds, houses, swimming pools, all that kind of stuff. But inherently you're adding in more complexities to the job, and in doing so, say for example you're adding in a rigging block and to the rigging point of the tree. So with that you're risking the potential of overloading the rigging point and having the stem snap out, tree failure, part tree failure. You're using a bunch of different components, you're introducing those different components. So is your rigging block going to fail for some reason? Is your rigging rope going to fail for some reason? Is the branch that you're rigging off going to swing back and hit you, pin you to the tree? Is the grounds person going to continue to lower like a heavy piece while you're pinned, and you get like really bad rope burn because you haven't communicated with them, or they're not really paying attention? You've also got you're introducing risks to the grounds person. Do they have the right amount of friction on the porter wrap, or do they think they can handle a piece that they can't, and then they're going to get their hands completely burnt, or they're going to get pulled into the tree or pulled up the tree even? You've got the risk of like you rigging a limb and swinging it and it hitting other branches and lots of other things snapping and falling on the grounds person. You're risking swinging a branch on the rigging line and it dislodging something above your head, maybe some dead wood that's going to fall on you. All this is added risk, whereas if you are the climber and you're just going to free fall a branch, aside from that branch maybe being tangled up in another branch above it and then somehow swinging back and hitting you, as soon as you make a cut and free fall a branch, there's not really any risk to the climber. Obviously, if there's things below, that's a whole other thing. That's like damage to be caused, but you're not adding risk to the climber in the tree. Whereas when you're rigging, you're introducing more potential for risk and for things to fail. So where you might instinctively think of rigging as being a safer option, rigging is actually introducing a lot more risk into the work site. So I'm not saying like for don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that rigging is a bad thing. Rigging is amazing. Rigging is something all climbing arborists need to know. We use it all the time. It's the only way we can safely do a lot of jobs, because as climbing arborists we're inherently working around urban environments, in tight quarters, that kind of thing. So we need to know how to rig. We need to know how to rig safely. We need to know how to get trees down safely without causing damage. But rigging inherently brings in extra risk to any job. If you're training somebody to rig, or if you're being trained to rig, learn the very basic system first. So learn, using a rigging point. So you got one rigging block, one rigging line, the porter wrap, and you just like butt hitching off branches. So that's the most simple form of rigging. So that's like tying the rigging sling around the limb near the trunk where you're going to make the cut the branch off, let it swing, the tip will go down and you lower it down. That's the most basic form of rigging possible. So get plenty of that rigging experience under your belt first, so you've done it in multiple different trees. You've seen how branches react, how different tree species react. If some are holding on and tearing down the bark, if some are snapping off early, you kind of get the feel of doing it over and over again, just learning that simple rigging technique. So then, because you don't want to have done like a couple of very simple rigs and then somebody says, oh, this tree, we need to set up like a controlled speed line or a reeve system or like fishing pole rigging technique, all this kind of stuff. And if you're only really familiar with the one simple type of rigging system, if somebody says you need to introduce like this complex rigging system, for one, if the tree is so complex that you need this additional rigging system, then it's going to be a pretty tricky tree to take down. And if you're not familiar with this, you're going to be introducing so many more components and parts and like moving parts to the rigging system that you've never experienced before. So you can't even imagine how the branches are going to react, how the rigging points are going to react, how there's so many more components and things to get tangled and go wrong, and that you just like, if you're completely overwhelmed by an idea that somebody's brought to you about how to do a rigging job, then it is not the time for you to introduce that rigging system. So I would say learn how to do the most basic rigging first. Do a bunch of that before you even start to introduce anything else. Then you could start introducing like tip tying, simple speed lining, and just sending branches down a rope without like a controlled line on it, just sending small branches down a speed line to move them to a different area to clear some obstacles. That's pretty simple. The biggest tip I can say for anybody doing any kind of rigging is set up your rigging, play it out in your head. So what I mean by that is, so you've got your rigging point up here, you're taking off a branch here, you've got your tying point up there somewhere close to your rigging point maybe, and you've brought the rigging line down here, you've attached it on, simple rigging system, butt hitching. Now, good communication is key. So communicate with the groundsperson. Right, are you guys ready? Tell them what you're taking off. Tell them, I think you'll need like a wrap on the porter wrap for this. But before you make any cuts, look back to your rigging point. Follow that rigging line down. Is that rigging line going across your climbing line? And you might think, well, it's not really, but then imagine as it starts to swing away. Is your climbing line underneath, and it's at some point it's gonna catch your rigging line and pull you away from the tree. Okay, so now you've realized that your rigging line, your climbing line is safe, it's out of the way, it's not going to get involved in the rigging line. um, then visualize the swing that the branch is going to take. Is it going to come to your right hand side? Is it going to go behind you to your left hand side? If it goes kind of behind you, is it going to get caught on like a stub below? Is it going to fall into your lap and the rigging rope's going to start running across you? Is this a very heavy piece that you need to know that it's going in the right direction? Is it weighted to one side but you're trying to rig it another way, but you've not got any additional pull to get it to go in the other way, and you're just hoping? Like you need to plow every single thing in your head. And I know this sounds like it takes a long time to do, but on simple rigging situations, on simple like branch to branch to branch to branch, it's literally once you get familiar, it's, you know, grabbing a rigging line, putting the sling on, connecting the rigging line, and in your head going, right, rigging line there, clear of my rope, clear of my lanyard, it's going to go that way, it's going to sail away from me, it's not going to get caught around the tail of my rope further down, it's not going to get, is it going to get caught on any branches? Oh, actually I've left a branch in the way, right, I best take that branch off first before I do this one. And it's little things like that are going to make your rigging go smoothly and efficiently. So play out in your head every single time before you need to rig, because then if you get in a good habit of doing that on the basic stuff, and then you realize that it's keeping you safe, it's keeping rigging lines from going across you, from like damaging your equipment, from pinning you to a tree, from knocking you off your spurs, then to also realizing that, oh, I should have taken those two branches off below me, because the branch I'm about to take is going to get caught on those branches, which is then going to mean I'm going to have to maybe go down and like free the rigging line because it's kind of got all wrapped up and tangled, and that's going to just make so much more work for myself. Whereas if I'd have taken those two branches off first and then come and done this one, I can just sit here, cut it off, have that rig down, and wait here, wait for the rigging line back again, rather than going back down and up and down and up and just making all this extra work for yourself. So play out every rigging scenario in your head before you make the cut, because I guarantee if you're just like on autopilot, and if you become very blasé about, oh, I've really got the hang of this rigging's easy, everything's going as I want it to. As soon as you start thinking like that and stop thinking about what you're doing, something will catch you out, and hopefully it's going to be something small that catches you out that you can rectify quite easily. But if it's something pretty serious that catches you out, if it knocks you off your spurs, if it's a huge limb that you're rigging out, and it goes, rather than going to the right hand side of your branch, it goes to the left hand side of your branch, of where you want it to go, and then it's like trapping your leg, huge rope trapping your leg, and then the groundsman's lowering it because he doesn't realize it's trapping you, and then you get huge rope burn plus the weight of the rope on your leg, or like maybe the whole limb comes down and the rope kind of runs across the back of your neck or something like that. All these situations can be avoided by playing it out in your head, but especially when you start doing more advanced kind of rigging. So even like, I know, when you're tip tying, you need to be aware that if you're tip tying and you're raising a branch, you need to think about, right, what happens when it gets to a certain point and just wants to snap? is it then going to still snap and like fall into the system? If it falls into the system, am I going to be in the way? Is it going to like spear me in the stomach? Or am I in a position where I've got to like a safe location that I can make the cut, where even if it does break early and falls, that I'm out of the way. I'm not in the line of fire, as it were. Speed line, so like basic simple speed line means that the branch, you've just got a sling on the branch, you've hooked it to the line and you're sending it and off it goes. Once it goes, you have no way to like haul it back to you. The groundsperson has no way to haul it to them. It's just gravity's taking it down. So if you set up a piece on a speed line and cut it and haven't played out in your head all the scenarios, and it catches on another branch below, but that's too far for you to actually go and retrieve, and then the groundsperson can't do anything about it, so then you've got a branch that's stuck, and then if you send another branch behind it, that's just going to get stuck. And every different rigging situation has issues that could occur, whether that be like a safety concern or just an efficiency concern. If you play out all these different situations in your head, you will save yourself so much trouble, and also save yourself so many potential injuries as well. Like I say, the more complex your rigging systems get, the more you need to think about it. So when, say for those basic types of rigging, I just automatically like play it through my head, but it's like this like instant thing where I kind of look around everything, ready to go, and it kind of just the branches just sail away as they should. I've done speed lining so much that I know to kind of clear a good path so that every branch that comes next has got a clear path to go to. But when it comes to things like using like a reeve system, or anything complex like that, where you've got like so many different moving parts to the whole system, those are the kind of things that I maybe need to set up like a mock system first before we even get to the job. Maybe I'll do it the day before, the weekend before, just to re-familiarize myself with those systems, because I haven't used them for so long. Because if you try and do it on a job site and you've kind of you've forgotten all the little nuances to those systems, as soon as you start working, that's when things are gonna start unfolding, and you realize, oh yeah, now I remember. But then it's already slowing the job down. Another thing that I think is really important to mention, especially when it comes to rigging, is something called cycles to failure. So if you're a new climber, you might not have heard the term cycles to failure before, and if you're an experienced climber, you might not think of it as much as you need to. So what cycles to failure is, so for example, in rigging you have the working load limit on a piece of equipment, and then you have the minimum brake strength. So in rigging, you have the minimum brake strength, say on a piece of equipment, might be 10,000 pounds. The safe working limit on that is 1/5, so that'd be 2,000 pounds. So what that means is that to work safely with that piece of equipment, you should always be keeping it in that, under that 2,000 pound limit the whole time, always working within that. But in rigging terms, it's quite easy to rig out pieces, shock load pieces, swing big heavy pieces, and exceed those smaller load limits that might seem big, but when you're introducing shock loading, actually are going to start exceeding those. And so the term cycles to failure means if you're rigging way beyond that safe working limit over and over and over again, that's going to be degrading that piece of equipment, or it's going to be working it too hard. So even though the minimum brake strength of something might be, say, 10,000 pounds. If you're constantly, you know, shock loading it and getting it up in the high, you know, 7s, 8s, 9,000 pound range, like every time you're using it, but you're not even you're thinking, oh well, you know, it's taking a piece, you know, it's not breaking, and I'm rigging off this huge amount of wood and I'm shock loading it, and it's able to handle it, and so it gives you more confidence, and you think, oh, this rope's fine, this rigging block's fine, it's taken way bigger pieces than this in the past. What might end up breaking that piece of equipment is actually like a small piece, and it might be like the straw that broke the camel's back, as it were. So it might just be like, you know, a small to medium size piece that you rig off that might just end up snapping your rigging line, or might end up snapping, you know, a sling or something that's in your rigging setup because it's been overloaded, or it's been over that safe working limit so many times that, you know, it started to degrade that bit of equipment, it started to weaken it. So you have to think those safe working limits, those percentages or fractions of the minimum brake strength is there for a reason. You need to be aware of that. So in rigging, like I say, it's 1/5 for a reason, and it's so you can work with that piece of equipment happily. You know, hardware, as long as it's maintained well, you're not dropping it and smashing it around. Hardware can be used, you know, for the lifespan of your career. Textiles, obviously, they break down under UV light and under weather conditions, all that kind of stuff. So they have a lifespan. But hardware, as long as you're working within that, those working load limits, those safe working loads, then you can have that for years and decades. But the cycles to failure is a really important thing to understand and learn. So, like I say, if you're loading something over and over, heavy loads, exceeding the safe working limit, a lot of the time it might be that small piece that you rig that is the straw that broke the camel's back. So cycles to failure, a very important one to think about, especially when you're rigging. Yeah, I'll just conclude the video just by saying, and like the big takeaway point from this whole video, and to keep yourself safe and to keep the job site running smoothly, is play out every single rig in your head before you make the cut. Because once you made the cut, that's it. Whatever is gonna happen happens. So you need to play it out in your head first. If that means you need to move a rigging line to a different point, if that means you need to reposition yourself so that you're not going to take the brunt of anything if anything goes awry. Yeah, play out all those different situations, because you'll save yourself so much time, energy, and the jobs will be more efficient. You will save yourself a lot of potential injuries as well. Okay, now grab the rigging line, yeah, and pull it with your left hand, like so. Keep the main where it's choked on there, but then grab the slack and pull it underneath this cut that you've made. Oh, like that. Yeah, keep coming underneath this cut here. Yeah, there you go. Right, and see. So Tom, if you just tighten that up now and see if you can get it to stay there, or even if you can get it to stay. Yeah, there somewhere, because there's like a little. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right, you tighten it there. That should be good. And then now, when you do that top cut,
Yeah, it'll pop down that way, but it's gonna
yeah.
get hung up though.
But it won't come towards you now.
Yeah, because it's pulling it that way.
Yeah.
Are you good, Tom? Yeah.
In this situation, there's a chance that when Connor removes this log, it could land in his lap up against all his climbing components, meaning that he would then have to fight the log and move it around to get it free. So instead, if he configures the sling in the right way and hooks it behind a branch or little stub, then he can make sure that it falls away from him and does not land in his lap. So we'll show you how he does that in this next clip. Connor has already made his undercut located here, and you can also see the webbing sling attached to the branch behind the bar of the chainsaw. Connor has hooked the webbing sling around a little stub on the left hand side of this piece of wood so that there's no chance that the rigging line can go to the right hand side towards him. Connor will then make the top cut and let the piece fall away. Appreciate you watching this, and I hope that really helps some of you. If you think that'll help some of your friends, colleagues as well, by all means please share this video with them, because it could, help save some nasty injuries. So thanks again for watching, much appreciated, and I'll see you on the next video.